Okay everyone, I wanted to do this short video here. I've had a lot of people on the forums ask me if I have done any air testing yet with my new Equinox 6-inch coil, and I had not done that yet. A lot of people are interested in knowing how the coil compares depth-wise to the 11-inch coil in an air test. And so obviously air tests aren't everything, far from it obviously, but at the same time, when you compare the 6-inch coil to the 11-inch coil in an air test, kind of an apples to apples comparison, you can at least get some kind of an idea as to what the differences are in terms of the coil. So I ran through some air testing here. I compared the 11-inch coil to the 6-inch coil on a silver dime, a silver quarter, walking liberty half, and then also a quarter, a dime, a nickel that I dug, as well as a wheat cent and an Indian head penny. And I'll publish the results of those air tests online here in a little while. I'm not going to go through the whole testing here on the video. It'd be boring and long and all those things, and I'm not good with video anyway. But couple things I did want to say is, number one, I ran my tests with the same settings for both coils. I ran my sensitivity at 18. That was about as high as I could go here indoors without keeping the machine relatively quiet. You can hear it's just a little bit chattery now. I'll explain that in a minute. But anyway, I ran sensitivity at 18. My ground balance was at 0. I picked noise cancel channel 7 here in the house. I ran it in all metal mode, and I like to run 50 tones when I run the machine. I had recovery set at 4 and iron bias was set at 2. So I ran each one of these coins with this setup on a yardstick to find out the maximum depth where I felt like I could get a quiet and repeatable signal for each coil, and then I recorded the results. And one thing I noticed right off the bat, it's not surprising, but 18, like I said, was about where I could run my sensitivity on the 11-inch coil and get it to be relatively quiet. So I ran that same sensitivity for the 6-inch coil, just again to compare apples to apples. What I did notice is I was able to run the sensitivity up higher. Again, not too surprising, but I could run it higher on the 6-inch coil and keep it quiet. I was able to run it up to about 21 and keep it quiet. But running it when I did my testing down there at 18, I thought that was, a pretty low value in terms of a 6-inch coil, what you'd actually hunt it with in the field. So while I did my air testing that way to keep apples to apples, I wanted to run the sensitivity up a little bit higher just to see how that changed the air test depth. So I tested a couple of coins at 22, and that's what I'm at right now, just a little bit above that 21 where it was relatively quiet. It's just a slight bit chattery at 22, but I want to get something closer to the maximum sensitivity to see just what the coil is capable of. So again, to summarize, I ran the 11-inch coil, ran those coins, ran the 6-inch coil, ran those coins, and I did it all with the same settings, including sensitivity at 18. And that's what I'm going to put online in terms of results. But then I also ran a couple of the coins with the sensitivity bumped up to 22 on the 6-inch coil, just to see how much that changes things. So there'll be some comparison that you can do between an 18 sensitivity and a 22 sensitivity with the 6-inch coil that I will also publish online on a couple of detecting forums. But the one thing I did want to do here real quick is just take this silver dime and run it, show you what I came up with it for the depth at sensitivity 22. And my point in doing that is just so you can see what I was using as a threshold for when I would say that that's a repeatable, good enough hit to consider writing down the number. So, I'll start it here at about 12. You can see nothing, just the background chatter. And I'll just keep moving it in until we start getting something that sounds repeatable. There's a little bit there at 10, but not enough. Right there. Right about 9 1/4. is where I can get a repeatable. I stop, and just a little bit of chatter. So I called that 9 1/4. That's basically where I was saying that's the type of signal that I was using to get my maximum depth when I wrote these numbers down. So now you have an idea of what I was using as my threshold in terms of hit versus no hit to record the depth. So that 9 1/4 or so there on a silver dime, not too bad for that coil. That's at sensitivity of 22. And just to give you a little bit of information, looking at that same dime, using the 11-inch coil at 18 sensitivity, that silver dime was 10 inches. So running a little bit higher sensitivity, you know, from 18 to 22 on the 6-inch coil as compared to the 11-inch, I was able to come pretty close to the same depth. The 10 inches is what, maybe 10 1/4 is what I was getting with the 11-inch coil at 18 sensitivity. I was able to get 9 1/2, 9 1/4 at 22 sensitivity with the 6-inch coil. So while you do lose a little bit of depth with the coil, correspondingly you can run the sensitivity up a little higher and make up a good bit of that. Without bumping the sensitivity up higher, what I noticed was about 1 3/4 inches when you're comparing apples to apples, both of them at 18 sensitivity. You lose about 1 3/4 inches in an air test across the board, roughly speaking, on each of the different coins. A little bit more on the quarter. It's about 2 inches on the quarter, but basically you lose about 1 3/4 inches on each coin when you run 18 sensitivity on the 11-inch and 18 sensitivity on the 6-inch. But again, bumping that sensitivity up 4 points to 22 on the 6-inch coil, I was able to gain back quite a bit of that depth. I was able to get it all the way to 9 1/2 inches, 9 1/4 to 9 1/2 inches on that silver dime when running at 22 sensitivity. So again, just to summarize, the coil, as you would expect, doesn't get quite as much depth apples to apples, but some of that can be made up just by running your sensitivity higher, which you're enabled to do given the smaller coil isn't as susceptible to EMI. So anyway, I just thought I would mention those points for those that are interested. And again, I'll publish these air test results, the specific numbers, on a number of different detecting forums. So for all those people that are curious about what the 6-inch can do, how much depth might you lose compared to the 11-inch coil, etc., hopefully this provides at least a little bit of an insight into how things compare. So that's all for now. Thanks.